partner, and that you start to hear more of. That's what and you see in the conservative movements. Oh, it's 10 o'clock. The conservative movements, Machzor, they use some of this language, which is really from Israel. Hi, Randy.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Randy. So we are turning this intro over to the beloved Sasha Soref, who has something very exciting for us. Sasha, do you have screen share yet?
I do not.
You do not. Can we give Sasha screen share, please? And our attention.
Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you are zooming in from in the world. So I wanted to share another way in to the Psalms. As many of you know, I'm a choreographer and dance teacher, and I believe that we all have movement and creativity in us. Some of us were just taught that we didn't. So I'm gonna share a video of something that I created with Adria Benjamin's beautiful playing as the score, and then we'll go from there.
Oh, this is not gonna be, it's not for me, okay?
So I'll invite everyone to mute. And can you see the image of me? Just someone say yes?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Wow. Oh my God, Sasha and Adria, what an incredible combination of the enormous talents you both are. Oh, and Sasha, to hear it with those words of "don't hide your face from me," and then at the end to see your face like that. Oh, just spectacular. We are such a lucky group of people. Amazing. Amazing. Wow, just beautiful. Gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you. So now, part two is the part where we all enter into our own volitional, gestural movement as we prepare for Slichot on Saturday, and we really are entering into this like next level as we've been on this journey, as Rabbi Kleinbaum keeps talking about all these weeks from Tisha B'Av, that we keep moving deeper and deeper into the contemplation. And so I'm going to put up now the words to Debbie Friedman's Al Tastir, of course, which we've been, many of us, engaging with in multiple ways in services in this class, with Adria playing it. So the invitation is that you see the words and or you listen to the music, and whatever you feel moved to do. So that could be sitting quietly with your eyes closed. That could be exploring some movement. I'm just going to put the recording of Adria on again for a few moments and just move. The words will be up so you won't be seen. It's just for you and whatever you think you're in supplication with to be exploring. So, any questions
Wonderful.
about that? Everyone willing to take it on? Wonderful. Okay, so give me a moment because I have to do multiple sharing screen activities to play music and share this. So tell me that you see the words. Ooh, that was confusing. Too many screens. All right, do you see the words now?
Yes, now we see the list.
Okay, so let me put this music on.
Now we do. We see it now.
So hold on. All right. Entering into your own, back with the words?
Yes.
Great. So be with your own experience. Here we go. Now here we go.
Wow. Wow, that was so much fun. Sasha, you're amazing. Thank you for getting me to get out of my chair and move around. Thank you.
Yes,
that's beautiful.
that was the goal.
Yes, thank you. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Sasha. What an amazing group of people we have. Just so moving. And thank you for inviting all of us into your art and letting us all experiment as the beginners some of us are. Thank you. All right, today we're going to finish the study of Psalm 27 in this way. On Monday, Rabbi Moskowitz is going to come in and teach us what the psalm means to him and go through the psalm from his experience. And then on Tuesday, we're going to start Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm not sure how many we have. We're going to read the personal psalms. So then, the day before Rosh Hashanah, we will finish with Psalm 27 as this part of finishing it with it. So we'll have spent the whole month with Psalm 27. So Harold, would you put up the synoptic? And I think did you send this to people too?
I did.
Excellent. So if you printed it out, if you're lucky enough to have a color printer, which I now do, one of my pandemic purchases. It is fun how the pandemic has definitely upgraded our apartment in different ways.
Can you see this, Rabbi, on the screen?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay. Let me get it back then.
So what Harold has done, which is a lot of work, is that he has taken multiple translations, some of which we've looked at closely, others we have not, and presented them synoptically, which is a very important word for the study of text. And synoptic means when you put, I don't know what it means exactly, but Harold will tell us. I use it all the time. It's when you put different texts next to each other so you could very carefully compare and contrast.
Can you see it now, Rabbi?
Yes, I can see it now.
So synoptic is from syn, S-Y-N, which is with an optic, the root for optic. So it's to see at the same time or to see together.
So when you study biblical texts, for instance, in the it's very, very common. There's a whole, when you're studying New Testament, there's something that's called the Synoptic Gospels, which are published in all because everybody wants to study the four Gospels, and what it's classical study to put them all four next to each other, and where the stories are the same, you can read how each of the Gospels treats the exact same story, and then when their story isn't the same, you see it, and when one Gospel refers to it, you can see when it's in. There you go. It's a very, very famous way of studying classical texts. And so what we're doing now is, and Harold has presented this beautifully, we have the Hebrew in one column so we could keep going back to it. And each color is a different translator. And the translator is noted in the first box so you can see which it is. And if you need to go back as we go down. So we're going to see what happens when a translator encounters a problematic word. And in the study of text, problematic doesn't mean bad. It means there's something not clear, and it's presenting us with a challenge to tease out, to sort out. And that's where it's obviously easier if a word is totally agreed on, where it's very clear. But problematic words are where it gets really interesting and fun. And then we want to see, how does a translator handle God language? How does a translator handle words around evil? How does a translator handle words around that have to do with when it's third person or first person, when they're speaking directly to God, or when they're speaking about God? And what would the reason be for that? Okay, so let's look at the first line. Yael, are you here to read the Hebrew, or if anybody wants to read the Hebrew? We could have anybody read the Hebrew if they want. We're going to do it line by line and do it with the synoptic translations.
I can't see hands, so Yael, can you do, or Benjamin?
Just line one.
I'm here, but if anybody else wants to read, that's
okay.
fine.
Benjamin will start with line one. Why don't you could even alternate. But we'll just do line one.
דוד, אדוני אורי ואישי, ממי יירא. אדוני מעוז חיי, ממי אפרת.
Thank you. So looking at what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 translations, right? Is that correct? Yes.
5.
5. Oh, yeah. See, I'm bad at math. So the first thing to notice is that 2 of the translations, Alter and the Machzor Lev Shalem, both maintain or hold on to the reference to David. All the others drop that. And Alter translates it Le David very closely, And Machzor Lev Shalem says a psalm of David. Now there's no Mizmor LeDavid here. So their translations clearly say, well, that's what it means, because it doesn't just mean for David. It's like it must be a shortening for it. But let's look at that. Now, all of you look at them and tell me, how would you compare and contrast? What are the differences and similarities? And what is, just for line 1, what are some of the differences you see? Let's start with differences. Let's start with God. How does each one refer to God?
Sherry Dredfield was the first one with a hand up.
So certainly the word used, Lord or you or Adonai, but also whether it's in the first, in the second person or the third person, is very striking here.
And how does that feel different to you, or what do you think about that? How does it work?
One's the you is the direct address seems, you know, very intimate and personal. So to me, it's more powerful, at least right at the beginning. You know, how it works the rest of the way, you know, may be different, but right at the beginning, it grabs you. It grabs me.
Good. Thank you. What else? What are differences here?
Karen Kropp asks, why did we, CBST, choose to leave out David in our translation?
And since you're speaking to someone who is intimately involved with that, we could actually answer that. We felt that it is for the purpose of liturgical use, which in our Siddur, that's what it's there for. LeDavid is not necessary, that we were experiencing LeDavid as a superscription, and that was less necessary for the use of it as a prayer. It's not right or wrong, it's just the decision we made for our Siddur.
Because Bahava points out that in Hebrew, it's clearly the third person.
Yes, again, remember that every translation is an interpretation. So sometimes people, and often, and we'll see this, and we've seen it before, and we'll see it going through the Sefer Tehillim, often the Psalms begin with third person, which I like very much because, as Shimon points out, the first person is much more intimate. So I think that when the move is made from third to first, you feel it. And if it's only in first person, you don't feel it as much. So that's the reason I would argue for maintaining the third person in the beginning of a psalm, because then when you get to the first person, it feels that much more intimate, as Simon said. So I like the transition, the contrast in a psalm. However, as soon as you start talking about God in the third person, as Noah Satat pointed out yesterday, you cannot avoid dealing with gender, and that's true in English. So as soon as you start talking about God, you have to start deciding gender and pronouns. And so we felt, for the purpose of a prayer book, which is really different than an academic translation trying to help people understand the entomology or the history, we felt for the purposes of a prayer, which Psalm 27 is in the Siddur, it worked better in the first person. And we could avoid dealing with the complexities of gender. And so in that way, it's a little bit of a cop-out, but we felt for the sake of prayer, where people aren't going to be sitting for months and studying it, but saying it in the middle of a service, it goes for the intimacy that Simon talked about. But I do think we lose something in the architecture.
So there was just a question about the capitalization of the whom. I will say that
capitalization of what?
Where whom is capitalized here. I will say that in many of these editions, there's short lines, and in order for space, I just made it one line. If you went back to the original, which I suggest you would, whom in Fisher was the beginning of a new. It's not a typo, but I didn't do the lines the way they did. Judy Hollinger has her hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to say in the Kohenet prayer book, which that Jill Hammer and some others created about, I don't know, within the last decade, because that's how long I've been there. There's a lot of nivarechs, a lot of let us
exactly
to avoid the gender stuff.
And Marcia Fox Sidor does that as well. And it also makes it more imminent. Let us, and it's less dealing with a transcendent, distant God and more about empowering the divine in all of us. Yes, I like that very much. Notice the one thing that you could say in every single one of these translations is the word light. Notice that nobody gets rid of light, right? That light remains, and it goes back to my drash from Friday night. And one of the reasons I think this is such a powerful psalm is this discussion of light and imagining this power that the Yud He Vav He, the power in the universe, is the source of light. My personal light, I think, is a super powerful expression of divinity, as opposed to God is a warrior who comes and rescues me. God is my light. It's very powerful. And then you see for Ishi, we see rescue, help. So there are different ways of looking at that. Okay, let's look at line 2. Is there anything else on line 1 people would like to say?
Not for the moment.
Okay. Oh, issue about God or Lord. Did I just see that?
Yes.
Yes. Classical translators, whenever the word Yud He Vav He is the Hebrew reference to God, which is the big name of God, which is never said except once on Yom Kippur, except by the high priest, and we don't know how to pronounce it anymore. In order to indicate it's that word of God, as opposed to the other 70 words for God in Hebrew, translators do oh God, here I go. Why can't I remember? Lower caps. Is that it? No. All caps.
Small caps. Small caps initial.
All caps. Why can't I remember? Small caps, Lord. So when you see Lord, small caps, the translator is making sure you understand it's Yud He Vav He. And when sometimes you'll see, which we haven't, I don't think in any of these, Lord God, and the God is also in small caps, it's translating Yud He Vav He Elohim, Adonai Elohim, or Adonai, but God never usually is for Yud He Vav He. But again, these translators are not trying to go for literal translation. Alter is, the others are much less connected to that. Okay, verse 2. Yael, would you read that and you guys can go back and forth if you don't mind?
Sure. בקרוב עליי מרעים לאכול את בשרי, צרי ואויבי לי המה חשלו ונפלו.
Now, okay, same thing. Let's look at these different attempts to understand this in English, and how do we understand them? Anybody notice differences or similarities, and
Lori
which
Krotman
ones you respond to? Which ones you respond to?
Lori Krotman.
Yeah, I'm always interested to see how people define evildoers. And the first 3 have evil, but the narrowness feels more appropriate to me. And I would think of the evildoers as, well, I think of the evildoers as internal. And it, like, not everybody does evil to you. They're just stupid or narrow or ignorant. It broadens the field to me of who can do evil.
That's a very good point. That's a really good point. I think for some of us, the concept of using evil about other people has been expanded in these last 4 years, right? I mean, I think that there's a way that we imagine nobody's really bad. They're just broken people. And we see that bad people in positions of power can do such evil that we now, while we might have known about it historically or from a distance, boy, that experience has changed, huh? But you're right, that what Fisher is doing, and that's the Buddhist translation, he is trying to expand it and take it out of a word that people will just pass over. You know, will just evil people. You know, it doesn't, this definitely broadens it.
Yael Bat Chava?
I'm really struck by this idea of doing evil intentionally or not intentionally. And this connects me also to the Bernstein translation that we saw about the parents abandoning their children. It doesn't have to be intentional. So I'm really struck by that.
Yeah, me too. I think, yes.
Judy Hollander?
Yes, I just wanted to expand on what Lori said, because it feels bad to me and I'm angry and so I might be generating enough energy to want to say some things like this. That person might not be wrong. And so I like some way to express this that has to do with how I'm reacting to what somebody else is doing, not necessarily their intent or anything. That's what I was saying. Thank you.
And it's interesting, this isn't saying I will cause them to stumble and fall, right?
No.
It's not saying my reaction to those evil should be that it's my job to make them stumble and fall. There's a belief in a universe in which evil will not ultimately succeed.
Right.
Jeffrey White?
Rabbi, I was thinking, say for example, that you do bad in a school paper. I mean, these things can be very small or very large.
Yes.
And you're very upset about this because of the bad grade, and you are very angry at that teacher, and you blame that teacher for not being a good teacher. Just an example. That doesn't mean that teacher was a bad teacher. It just means this is how you're feeling, and that's why I was thinking that we're thinking big things because we need to think big things, but there's also small
Absolutely.
things.
And I think it was Lori said, and also these can be internal things. Remember, a psalm can always be read on both levels, internal and external. And I think the power of having these words on a page is where you are in the moment will affect how you interpret that. And the point of the psalm, I think, is to express it in a way that doesn't then mean you go out and kill people. You know, when you're feeling really besieged, you know what it's like to feel besieged in your personal lives, in our political lives. You need to be able, this psalm, I think, expresses that feeling of being under siege. And you're absolutely right. It's not necessarily that they're wrong and we're right, but you can have feelings about it. And the question is, what do you do with the feelings? And this psalm gives, I think, a place to go with it that isn't about increasing the violence. You know, either against ourselves, by the way, or against other people.
Jeffrey Weiss?
And then we're going to go on to, after Jeffrey, we're going to keep going just so we can see as many of these verses as possible.
Okay. Jeffrey?
I think I'm saying the same thing with other people in different words, but what I see when I see the word devour my flesh is like challenging my own humanity, because when I'm confronted with the hatred, I wind up being just, I could get just as angry and go on their level.
Right.
Challenging to go on another level, like how to remain being humane and decent in the midst of all this.
Exactly. And for me, the psalm helps me to do that. But it does it partly because it expresses that the despair, the sense of being under siege. That's not fake. It's real. The question is, how do you handle it and how do you do it? And so let's go on to the next verse.
Okay. Can you see it on your screen?
Yes.
אם תחנה עלי מחנה, לא יירא ליבי. אם תקום עלי מלחמה, בזאת אני בוטח.
All right, same thing. Let's look at these translations. All right, the black that's Sepharia, right, Harold?
Yeah, JPS Sepharia.
JPS Sepharia, okay. So now look at the differences with the word about army. And again, we're not going for the Hebrew. You could see that the words are a play on the same shoresh, but the English is not going to do that. Should an army besiege me? Though a camp is marshaled against me, we're an army. Should an army, a royal army? So they're quite different. And it's interesting that Fisher goes for royal army. So this goes back to the feeling. And when they struck out with terrible weapons, even then I would have trust. Imagine feeling that confident to feel this anxiety. And again, I think it goes back to Richard Levy's reference to Martin Luther King using this.
Pen.
Excuse me? Oh. Imagine this is a king saying this the night before they went out for that action against the, white supremacists of St. Augustine. How powerful this is.
Donna Gray?
My comment was from before. It's from something that really affected me from Rabbi Moskowitz's talks in the morning about the difference between an intention and the impact it has on another person. And, that it might be obvious, but to me it was an epiphany to look at it in a deeper way.
Thank you, Donna.
Noreen? Dean?
I'm unmuting myself. I just wanted to point out that this line about an army or, the camp is marshaled against me. In the Civil War, men would gather around the fire, and a lot of, the hymns, the Battle Hymn of the Republic and some of the others were sung to give them courage. And when they went into battle in the Civil War, what was unique is that usually it's that 1 out of 10 men get killed. There's a retreat, they call a retreat. They would often go to 20% because people felt that commitment. So I just wanted to talk about how being in touch with a hymn would carry one over one's fear.
Wow, beautiful. All right, let's look at line 4 and then hold up this, see if the comment will be relevant.
I have to put it down to put it back up again. Hold on. Okay. Here we go. Whoops. A little juggling today. All right.
And I think what's important to remember, success for the psalmist doesn't necessarily mean something immediate is going to change on the outside. And it's redefining what success looks like and what victory looks like and what extending the holiness in the world looks like. We want instant gratification, and that's not, the psalmist is not thinking about instant gratification.
Do you see verse 4 now?
No, it's black now.
Okay. Let me stop share and start share again. How's that?
Good.
Okay, great. All right.
All right. Whose turn is it to read in Hebrew?
I'll read.
Okay.
אחת שאלתי מאת אדוני אותה אבקש. שבתי בבית אדוני כל ימי חיי, לחזות בנועם אדוני ולבקר בהיכלו.
All right. So now let's look at these 5 translations and see what you think of this, such a famous and powerful words and music at CBST. Let's see what these different translators, how they handle it. What strikes you?
All right. Linda Solomon has had her hand up for a while. Linda, do you have a comment on verse 4 or in general?
Well, in general and on verse 4, because that's the piece that I'm writing, the reaction that I'm writing, I focus on 4. And that's the part that always had most meaning to me. But when I talk about the evildoers, or whatever word you use for that, I'm struggling with the external and the internal, my own demons, and how to place my own demons in the right place to capture the meaning of the psalm. So that's where I'm stuck right now. I'm just almost finished with it, but I need to put in my own internal demons to make it read what I want to say.
Beautiful.
So
I'm eager to see what you do with it.
All right, Lori Kropman?
No.
Okay. Karen Kropp?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see whether we are asking something of Yud-Hey, Vav-Hey, or God or Lord here, or whether we are just asking.
And I love the way that Fisher puts the word hope in here.
Yeah.
Ari Mantz.
Yeah, I think similar to what was just said, I really appreciate the CBST translation and the Fisher translation. I think is the last one.
Yes.
That it just says one thing I add, like it doesn't include Lord or Adonai or Yud-Hey Vav-Hey in any form. I think it really opens up the verse to people who might be struggling with thinking about asking something of God. I really appreciate that.
Good. Yeah, it's hard to figure out how to create prayers that bring people in immediately and not create obstacles for them. And I do think that the power that whatever an individual believes, there's a power in the universe that increases goodness and increases holiness and increases the light. And there are powers in the universe that, when we engage in the other side of those actions, decrease holiness. And for me, that's what it's about.
Michael Goldstein.
Yes, thank you. As many of you know, because I've raised this point before, Adonai and God and all the rest of it, I use the word good and the good. So in this line, it says, one thing I ask of the good, only that do I seek, to live in the house of the good all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the good, to frequent good's temple. And it goes on and on. Every time there's a capitalization of Lord or Adonai or whatever it is, I'm using the word good. And that's how I'm going to work in my translation. And that's what I believe.
And that's the goal of this. If you can figure out a way to make each word meaningful to you, these words are 2,500 years old. That's incredible. So of course there's going to be, we have to struggle to get to what the deeper meanings are, and that some words are going to be alienating because they don't speak to us. The question is, how would it work to make it speak to you? That's always the question.
And for me, the concept of the good is the meaning of life. In other words, we all strive for the good, and we all want to be good, and we all want to look to the good. I mean, that's
right. And that's what, so somebody who is talking theology would ascribe that characteristic to the power that created the universe. But as I said, Maimonides famously said, we don't have a name for God, so to speak. We don't know what that is that we call God. Well, the best we can do is describe characteristics that we experience. So do we experience goodness in the world? Do we experience love? Do we experience connectedness? Do we experience compassion? Do we experience justice? Do we experience forgiveness? And Rambam would say all those things are aspects. It's like everybody touching the elephant kind of thing. You've got to get to it through your own personal experience and amplify it.
And by
because you need more of it. Whatever it is you've got there, whether it's compassion, forgiveness, and those are going to change.
And following the commandments is the good.
That's what makes it meaningful for you.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
So in chat, several people are saying that it reminds them of George Harrison's song, My Sweet Lord, I Really Want to See You.
Beautiful. I never thought about that, but absolutely. This is the whole thing about seeing. We see this in this song in such a beautiful way. Don't hide your face from me. I want to see you.
And
beautiful. That's interesting.
Gail Malka Meister has her hand up.
What I really appreciate in these lines is the softness of the words, to gaze, to behold, and the softness of sweetness, loveliness, beauty, which are so in contrast to the previous words, when they eat your flesh. And also in English, maybe there's a word that combines sweetness, loveliness, pleasantness, but it's so nice to see all these words together because I think they convey Noam.
Beautiful. That's a very important part of looking at a psalm, is that what's happening before and after. Obviously, by doing it this way, we lose a little bit of the rhythm of the arc of each of the psalm, which is why I like to start by studying an individual translation. But this gives us a sense of, once we've done that, this becomes more meaningful. But I agree with you. The contrast helps to make a word stand out more in any kind of poetry, right? But here, yes, very much so. And the eating the flesh, the kind of being consumed, being that sense of being completely eaten up. I mean, in English, we have a sense of if somebody's feeling eaten up by something, you know, they can't let it go. They can't get away from it. They're eaten up by something at work. They're eaten up by something they heard on TV. They're eaten up by something their friend said. You know, being eaten up is a very, that contrast to gaze or to be absolutely beautiful. Thank you.
Rabbi, we're at 10:40, and Sasha wants to play us out. Do you want to do more comments on this line, or do you want to go to another line?
Yeah, let's just see on this. Let's just finish if there's anything else in general or on line 4.
Okay, Betsy Immersheim.
We can't see it.
Still,
You see it?
yeah, I see it. So I'm very struck, especially seeing it this way. I think one of the reasons I've always loved this verse, I realize, is that in using the word house, and every translation uses it, to think of God's house is very different than his temple or the sanctuary. And I feel more at home this way and kind of almost nurtured, or it's a whole different feel to think of it in those terms. And it's very personal to me because of that.
So it's interesting, and that's an English issue to some degree, because we call the Beit HaMikdash, the house of holiness, is actually one of the Hebrew words for temple, which is, the word temple also has very weird connotations to it. So imagine that we're talking about God's house, so to speak, is Beit HaMikdash, the place of holiness. That's a pretty different idea, than the word temple. That Beit HaMikdash often gets translated as temple, but the Hebrew words are Beit HaMikdash. Hold on just a second. Penny wants to go out. Go ahead, Penny. Go ahead. So yes, and again, this gets to language can be a barrier, even with the best attempts. That's why we have to keep digging.
Let's go to Joan Friedman for one last comment. Maybe?
Okay. A few days ago, I was studying this with a very thoughtful 12-year-old friend of mine, and I was asking about what she saw this meaning. And so she said that the house of God is the world, right? So we're already there, we're in it. And when I asked her what it means to be asking to be in it, since we're already there, she said, well, maybe it's like we're just in the entranceway.
Beautiful.
And I'd like to go further in.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That is gorgeous. All right, let's end this for today. And we'll see if we have time next week, depending on folks' personal Psalms, how many we have, we can come back to this. And Harold, thank you so much for doing this. It's an incredible, you can do this yourself, by the way, by taking all the printouts and just putting them on a desk in front of you and just do line by line and go through each one. But it's such a powerful way to look at a psalm. It really doesn't work, though, if you haven't already studied them. It's much harder to make it work because each translator is creating a whole. Anyway, okay, so let's and then folks, so this is Thursday. So tomorrow is Friday night Shabbos, and we have a special surprise tomorrow night at services. And then for Shabbos morning, there are services at 9:30 in our regular way. And then Saturday night is Slichot. And Slichot will be doing via Zoom. And Joyce, Sam, Larry, and I will be leading Slichot at 10 p.m., if you could stay up that late. And 9 p.m., Rabbi Rapport is going to be teaching a class studying the Great Aleinu, one of the most important pieces of liturgy from the High Holidays. So it's from 9 to 10 for study, and then from 10 to 11 late at night, but you can lie on your couch and turn on your computer. And then this is our last Shabbos before 5781.
All right, over to you, Sasha.
Okay, so I just put in the chat the words that we're working with today from Al Tastir. I'm going to play Adria's beautiful music again. And this time, I'm not going to put the words in the center of the screen. So if you feel comfortable, you can just be moving with all of us moving, and we can see each other moving in community. And it's just sort of a pleasure to be all moving at the same time. So the invitation now, we've just had this rich time of learning and digging into the specific language. So what does, don't hide your face from me, I'm asking for your help. What does that mean to you right now? Here we go. Thank you.
Spectacular. Thank you, Sasha. Thank you, Adria. And thank you, Harold. And thank you all for being part of this incredible. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. See you tomorrow night.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.